Hello, my name is Andrew Hunter-Johnston, and this is Thought for the Day for Friday, the 11th of March. One of the set texts for today is Psalm 22. Luther called it a gem, quite remarkable. But it's very long, so I'm not going to read it in full, but simply pull out a few of the key verses and share some thoughts about them. It starts with the famous cry of anguish, my God, why have you forsaken me?" These words in the psalm were, of course, David's, but they have been on the lips of suffering people throughout the ages and must be in the hearts of Ukrainian families today as they see their country, their homes, and their families destroyed around them. The words are also, of course, one of Christ's final utterings from the cross. And throughout the first part of this psalm, Christ's suffering and death are foreshadowed in an extraordinary way with great accuracy. So let's look at a few of those verses. In verse 7, we have, "All they who see me laugh me to scorn," one of several verses which Handel set in Messiah. In verse 11, "Be not far from me, for trouble is near, and there's no one to help," referring to Jesus' time in the Garden of Gethsemane and his trial. In verse 14, "My bones are pulled apart, my heart is melting." In verse 15, "My strength is gone, my tongue is dry in my mouth." In verse 18, "They part my garments and cast lots on them." And in verse 16, "They have pierced my hands and my feet." So why did Jesus, who had never been parted from the presence of God the Father throughout his life, feel deserted at this crucial moment? Especially as, at this point, almost more than at any other point in his life, he was doing exactly what he was intended to do, to be the ultimate witness and proof of sacrificial love. It must in some ways be a mystery beyond our understanding. But probably, as the commentators put it, this is the point where he faced the ultimate displeasure of God. Not at his life, of course, but at the burden of the sins of the world, which at that moment he had taken upon himself. This was the moment of ultimate pain and judgment, the moment when God had to cast him out, cast him aside. But, as we know, it wasn't the end, and God had not forsaken him. In his Narnia books, C.S. Lewis refers to the deep magic, the rules by which the world of good and evil work. But he also refers to the deeper magic, the rules established from before the beginning of time, whereby a life which is lost can be redeemed by sacrificial love, when an innocent person takes the punishment. We can't understand how this is, how it works. But in that moment on the cross, it seems that Jesus broke through a barrier and changed everything. Death had not won, and God had not forsaken him. Instead, he had broken the power of evil forever. How does this help us today, or even more, how does it help the Ukrainians and their pain? Well, from verse 22 of this psalm onwards, the tone changes quite dramatically and suddenly. It says, "I will praise your name among the people, praise and glorify God." And in verse 24, "For he has not despised the afflicted, neither has he hid his face from them. But when they cried unto them, he heard them." The Bible gives little assurance that we won't suffer in this life. Quite the contrary. In many places, we're told that the way may be hard. There will be persecution and suffering. Although death and suffering are ultimately beaten, the war is won, we are still fighting on the battlefield, and we are involved daily in the struggle against evil. Many of us in our daily lives are often almost unaware of the struggle, while others contend with great trials of many kinds. But in Ukraine, Afghanistan, and so many other places around the world, the fight against evil is palpable, and there are casualties, both real, physical, as well as spiritual. The Bible is very clear that evil is a real and personal force which needs to be resisted with all power and with prayer. But at the same time, the comfort of the gospel is twofold. First, we are assured that evil ultimately is defeated and that good prevails in the end. We can look forward with full assurance to Christ's return in glory when, as Revelation puts it, all tears will be wiped away. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain. In the meantime, the Bible offers a second comfort, that God is with us in the pain and the suffering. He suffered on the cross and is still with us now. Indeed, if we turn the page of the Bible to the next Psalm, number 23, we read, "Though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me." May God be with us all today, and especially with the suffering people of the Ukraine. May they keep hope and faith.